Hey friends, Arthur here from Arthur's Ledger. Let's jump right in. Back in the 70s, about 6 out of every 10 adults in America were considered middle class. Today, that number has dropped to just 5. That comfortable majority is shrinking, and it's happening right under our noses. This isn't just a headline. For millions, it's the quiet, creeping anxiety that the floor beneath their feet is starting to give way. For generations, the deal was simple: get a good education, work a steady job, and you could build a comfortable life. Buy a house, raise a family, save for retirement. But that rule book has been tossed out the window. Following that classic path today feels like trying to win last year's video game with a controller that has half the buttons missing. The game is rigged, and the odds are no longer in your favor. And here's a number that proves it. Just a few years ago, a typical middle-income family could afford nearly half the homes on the market. Now, they can afford just over 20%. Let that sink in. The single biggest symbol of middle-class success, homeownership, has become a statistical long shot for the very people who are supposed to achieve it. It's not that the dream is dead, it's that the price of admission has become impossibly high. So, what happened? Why does it feel like you're running harder and harder just to stay in the same place? It's not your imagination. And it's definitely not because you aren't working hard enough. The entire economic landscape has shifted. We're caught in what I call the middle-class trap, a frustrating cycle where stagnant wages are suffocated by the skyrocketing costs of everything that matters: housing, education, and healthcare. In this video, we're going to dissect this trap piece by painful piece. We lines uncover why your income has been losing a silent, brutal fight against inflation for decades. We'll explore how the very definition of a good job has been watered down. And we'll expose the uncomfortable truth about why the old advice to just save more is now completely obsolete. So stick with me, because understanding the trap is the first step to finding a way out. 1. The Great Decoupling. To really understand the trap, we have to rewind the clock. Back in the sunny, post-war decades, the economy had a simple, unwritten contract with its workers. As the country got more productive making more stuff, more efficiently so did you. It was a beautiful, synchronized dance. From the late 1940s to the early 1970s, worker productivity and worker pay grew almost in perfect parallel. For every step up in efficiency, your paycheck took a step up, too. It made sense. You work smarter, you get a bigger slice of the pie. That was the deal. Then, around 1979, the music stopped. The dance partners broke apart. Technology kept leaping forward, computers entered the workplace, and American productivity continued its steady climb. But the paychecks for the average worker, they flatlined. This is what economists call the Great Decoupling. Look at this graph from the Economic Policy Institute. It is famously known as the jaws of the snake. The top jaw is productivity, soaring upwards. The bottom jaw is the typical worker's pay, barely moving. That massive, ever-growing space between them. That's the value you created that never made it into your wallet. Let's put some numbers on it. From 1979 to 2019, net productivity in the U.S. shot up by about 60%. But during that same 40-year period, the hourly compensation for a typical worker grew by just under 16%. Productivity grew 3.5 times more than pay. Think of it like this: Imagine you be a coffee barista. In 1975, you could make 20 cappuccinos an hour. By 2025, thanks to a fancy new espresso machine, you can make 60 in the same hour. You are literally 3 times more productive. But your inflation-adjusted pay has barely budged since you were using the old clunker. Who's getting the profit from the extra 40 coffees? Not you. This isn't some accident of history. It was a fundamental rewriting of the rules. Factors like the decline of union power, deregulation, and new corporate priorities that favored shareholders over employees all played a part. The system was re-engineered so that the vast majority of gains from economic growth flowed to the very top. The result is the world we live in now. One where you can be the most productive, most efficient worker in your family's history, but still feel like you're falling behind. It's because the staircase you're climbing and the one the economy is climbing are no longer connected. So, when you feel that anxiety, that you're working harder, but your money isn't going as far, you're not crazy. You didn't fail. The deal was broken. The jaws of the snake opened up and started swallowing the American dream. One paycheck at a time. 2. The Big Three Squeeze. So, if your paycheck has been decoupled from productivity, where did all that money go? A huge chunk of it went to fight a battle on 3 fronts. Against what I call the Big Three Squeeze: housing, education, and healthcare. These aren't optional luxuries. They're the non-negotiable pillars of a middle-class life, and the cost for all 3 has gone completely berserk. Let's start with the roof over your head. Back in 1985, the median home price was about 3.6 times the median household income. By 2024, that ratio jumped to over 5. The price of houses has grown way faster than what we earn. Think about that. The goalposts for the single biggest purchase of your life haven't just moved. They've been launched into a different stadium. This forces people into a corner. You either take on a crippling mortgage that eats up a terrifying portion of your income, or you're locked out of home ownership entirely, forced to pay ever-increasing rents that build zero equity. It's a financial trap with 2 doors, and they both lead to the same feeling of being squeezed. Next up, education. We tell every generation that a college degree is the key to a better life. But since the 1980s, the cost has increased at a staggering rate in some periods. Nearly 8 times faster than wage growth. Between 2000 and 2019 alone, the average cost for tuition, fees, and housing shot up by 59%, while wages for degree holders barely budged. This has created a generation buried in debt. Total student loan debt in the U.S. has exploded to over $1.7 trillion. We've turned the traditional launchpad for a career into a financial anchor that drowns young people before they even get a chance to swim. The golden ticket now comes with a bill so large it can dictate your life choices for decades. And finally, the scariest one: healthcare. Simply staying alive has become ruinously expensive. Since 1999, the average family's health insurance premium for employer-sponsored coverage has increased by over 340%. To put that in perspective, worker earnings over that same period only went up by about 119%. Premiums for family coverage have climbed at roughly 3 times the pace of workers' pay over the last quarter century. And it's not just the premiums. Deductibles, the cash you have to fork over before your insurance even starts to pay, have also skyrocketed. Getting sick in America is now one of the quickest ways to go broke. So, look at the math. Your wages are flat. Meanwhile, the cost of a house, a degree, and your family's health are all on a rocket ship. Each one of these would be a massive burden on its own. But together, they're a boa constrictor, wrapping around the middle-class budget and squeezing every dollar out before you have a chance to breathe, let alone save or invest. This isn't a failure of budgeting, it's a systemic crushing. 3. The debt anchor. So, we've established that your paycheck is flat while the big three costs are exploding. But there's a more insidious force at play, one that attacks your finances before you even earn your first real dollar. I'm talking about the anchor of debt that we now strap to the ankles of our young people, right at the starting line of their careers. For previous generations, you started your career at zero. You worked, you earned, you saved. Today, millions start the race deep in the negative. The average bachelor's degree recipient now graduates with nearly $30,000 in student debt. That's not a stepping stone. It's a financial hole you have to spend years climbing out of just to get back to zero. Let us be clear what this means. This isn't just a bill you have to pay. It's a fundamental rewriting of your financial life. All that income from your first decade of working hard, the money that should be your first down payment, your first 401k contributions, your first investments gets rerouted. It's diverted away from building your future to pay for your past. Let us do some quick, painful math. A typical federal student loan might carry an interest rate around 6%. On that average debt of about $30,000, if you take the standard 10 years to pay it off, you lines hand over more than $11,000 in interest alone. Think about that. That's $11,000 of your hard-earned money that vanished into thin air. It bought you nothing. It didn't compound in an investment account. It just serviced the debt. This is the debt anchor in action. It creates a massive opportunity cost. One study found that an average student debt load for a household can lead to lifetime wealth loss of nearly $208,000. The money spent on repayments is money that can be used for a down payment on a house or saved for retirement. It's like compound interest in reverse. Instead of your money making money for you, you're spending years working to make money for the lender. You're fighting against a current that is actively pulling you away from wealth accumulation. And the anchor is getting heavier. The total student debt in the U.S. has ballooned to over $1.8 trillion. But it's not the only one. The minute you need a car to get to that job, you need to pay your loans. You get another anchor. The average car loan term is now nearly 6 years long. We're signing up for debt that lasts almost as long as a presidential term, just for a depreciating asset. Then, to bridge the gaps between paychecks, to cover an emergency repair or a medical bill, what happens? You reach for the plastic. The average American now carries over $6,500 in credit card debt. It's a daisy chain of debt, each link making it harder to break free. This has profound psychological consequences. It's not just about the numbers, it changes behavior. With a massive debt burden, you're less likely to take a risk on starting a business. You might be forced to take a higher-paying job you hate over a lower-paying one in a field you love. It dictates life choices, forcing millions of people onto a more conservative and often less prosperous path. This system turns your most energetic, productive years into a frantic scramble just to stay afloat. The dream of getting ahead is replaced by the desperate reality of just trying not to fall further behind. Working hard is no longer the primary engine for your prosperity. It's now the engine for servicing your debt. So, you're running on the hamster wheel, putting in the hours, being a productive employee. But the wheel is hooked up to a generator that's powering someone else's mansion. The debt anchor ensures that even if your income rises, a huge portion of it is siphoned off before it can ever be used to build real, lasting wealth for you and your family. 4. The disappearing ladder. So, we're drowning in debt, but the plan is to work our way out, right? Climb that steady career ladder to success. Well, what if I told you that ladder has been kicked out from under us? In 1980, 38% of private sector workers had a defined benefit pension, a guaranteed paycheck for life after retirement. That was the deal. You give a company decades of your life, they give you a secure retirement. It was the foundation of the middle-class dream. But that foundation has been systematically demolished, starting with the support beams, labor unions. Back in the early 80s, about 1 in 5 American workers was a union member, giving them the collective power to bargain for fair wages, benefits, and job security. Today, the rate in the private sector has been slashed to barely 6%. That's not an accident, it was a demolition job. With unions weakened, the corporate playbook changed. The first promise they broke was the one about your retirement. That guaranteed pension was deemed too expensive, so they replaced it with something called a 401k. This was a masterstroke of financial engineering. It brilliantly shifted all the risk of a market crash, all the responsibility for saving, and all the uncertainty of old age from the company's books directly onto your shoulders. A pension was a promise. A 401k is a gamble. The guarantee of a stable retirement was replaced by a casino where you were forced to bet your entire future on the whims of the stock market. Then, they came for the career itself. The 30-year job was replaced by the gig economy. This is pitched as flexibility, but it's really instability as a service. Today, more than a third of the entire U.S. workforce does some form of freelance work, and some projections show freelancers becoming the majority by 2027. Being your own boss sounds great until you realize it also means you your own HR department, your own benefits provider, and you have no paid sick days. There's no ladder to climb because there's no company to climb in. The rungs of the ladder have been sawed off and sold. You're working harder than ever, but for fewer of the rewards your parents' generation considered standard: a pension, secure healthcare, and a predictable path forward. Working hard is no longer enough when the structure of work itself has been hollowed out. The trap isn't your work ethic, it's that the game itself has been fundamentally changed to ensure the house always wins. If this deep dive into our economic reality made you feel something, hit the like button and subscribe for more truths they don't want you to think about. Arthur, out.